These are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, our virtual attendees for our Brocato webinar this morning. This is Jessee Skittrall coming at you. We have a wonderful webinar today. Before we actually get started, I see we have about 15 people in our room. If you could all raise your hands, that would be greatly appreciated. I have you muted. Just want to make sure that everybody can hear appropriately. I see a hand raised. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Gabriel. Do we have anybody else? I want to make sure we got Kristen. There we are. Megan. Beautiful. I'm going to assume, since you people can hear, that everybody else can hear. I'm very excited to have you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and lower those hands. So with that being said, for those of you that I have not officially met, my name is Jessee Skittrall, and I'm a Brocato design team member and a salon owner up here in Seattle, Washington, where we're having the nice weather. My congratulations and apologies to those of you that are having poor weather. And we have a very exciting webinar for us today going on. We're going to spend about an hour's worth of time talking about styling and red carpet finishing and really making sure that we have an incredible finish within the salon. So if we can really ask questions in the chat feature down below, we'll go ahead and ask questions as we go, and we'll make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. Hit us in the questions box or in the chat box, and we'll try to moderate those in and input those in as we go. So with that being said, I wanted to introduce you first and foremost to our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful attendee that has joined us, Mr. Jeremy Scheifflee. I want to make sure, did I say that right, Jeremy?
Scheifflee.
Scheifflee. Okay, see, I suck at this. I suck at this.
Yeah,
So
the
what we're
EI can throw things off.
it does throw things. People never say my name right either as well. So Jeremy, what we're going to be talking about today is tool choice, hair prep, finishing, retailing through the process, and question and answer. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Jeremy.
Jeremy Scheifflee, Brocato design team member. Have been with Brocato, gosh, getting on close about 10 years. Just opened a salon downtown Milwaukee called Third Coast Style. So I'm representing the Midwest and working hard, doing what we love to do.
How's the weather over there? You guys have some cold
It's
stuff, don't you?
actually, it's really beautiful today. I'm
Nice.
upwards of 40, which is, nice for Milwaukee.
Nice, very nice. Congratulations. Well, we're very excited to have Jeremy join us. He's the king of red carpet finishes and has some really great tips on how to make our lives easier within the salon. So, one of the first things that we wanted to chat about was tool choice and tool selection within the salon, because tools set us up for success. And Brocato being one of those tool choices, we'll talk a little bit later about that, but why we choose the tools that we use. And you'll see Jeremy using them throughout. Um, the first thing, and chime in here anytime you want, Jeremy, is selecting the right blow dryer. The blow dryer makes a huge makes your success. One of the things that you want to look for when you are choosing the correct blow dryer is airflow, your heat, the weight, and the decibel as well. You got to think about these things as little jet engines, and those little jet engines can really create a circular pattern as they're coming out of the hair, which means they're definitely not concentrated in pushing the hair in the right direction. So choosing the right blow dryer is going to make a huge difference, and the concentrator nozzle is going to be vitally important. How important do you feel the nozzle is, Jeremy, to your success?
I actually have two blow dryers that I use. One that I super glue the nozzle on, and another one that I have for a diffuser if necessary. So I pretty much don't go without a concentrator.
It's funny you say that. I have the same obnoxious behavior. I look for a nozzle that screws on so that I can twist it as I go along rather than actually popping it over the top of the blow dryer. So vitally, vitally, vitally important to have a concentrator nozzle, because it's going to really focus the airflow through the hair and flatten out that cuticle and get shine and direct that circular pattern into a flat pattern that's going to help us push the hair. Brushes are going to be vitally important. When we talk about some of the brush choices, we need to think in terms of having a great paddle brush, a great boar bristle brush, various sizes of thermal brushes. My personal favorite is the oval brush by Brocato, because it's a paddle on one side that gets a lot of airflow and has a slight curve to it, and a boar bristle on the other, so I can polish hair. So anytime you're looking to create volume, a thermal brush is going to be a great choice, and a boar bristle brush is going to be a really great choice for creating smoothness or texture in the hair and polish in the hair. Any thoughts on brushes, Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't generally tell people what, size of brush to use, what type of brush to use necessarily. I know it's all an individual stylist. We're all comfortable with certain things and achieving certain looks. So I think as long as you have the system down, what brush you use really will determine, how your DNA is put into your client's finish.
Nice. And of course, clips are going to be vitally important. We at Brocato have created the wonderful shark clip, and we offer those. Those have been the best invention since sliced bread. I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I know in the salon it's eliminated the butterfly clamp and the old duckbill style clamps for me, and all I have is this one all-purpose clip. Any,
Yeah.
any anytime I can have one clip, I'm as happy as a clam. So let's jump right into it when we talk. That just gives us kind of an overview really quickly of what your tools should look like in the salon. But the second step is going to be the hair prep. And hair prep is going to be vitally important to everything else. We're one of the few industries where we jump into things without really doing a lot of preparations. If you're a painter, you prepare the walls. 90% of the prep is going to be in the painting. And the same thing goes for hair. And one of the first things that I like to tell people is hair care is equal to skin care because the hair is the appendage of the skin. You really want to treat them as the same. So, in saying that, there's three basic good steps to good skin care. There's cleanse, tone, and moisturize. And we want to follow those same steps. And when we think about styling aids, think of your styling aids as your makeup. Well, you would never think to do your makeup without a moisturizer on your skin if you're a woman, because it's going to go on very splotchy. So let's take a look at what these steps look like. So the first one is shampoo. Shampoo is going to be, obviously, is going to be the cleanser step in that skincare regime that we're talking about. And when you choose a shampoo, you want to choose your shampoo based off of the hair's needs, because, i.e., the hair is damaged or we have an oily scalp or whatever the situation is. And in Brocato, we've broken them down into regimens for you, so it makes it really simplistic. We have about 9 different regimens that you can choose from scalp treatment focused regimens to volume focused, color focused, to damage focused hair as well, or even if you have curl. So pick your cleanser appropriately to what you're going to be doing, focusing on the scalp and dragging that through the ends. The second step in any good skincare regime is toner. And toner really helps to adjust the pH of the hair or the skin so that it can be receptive to whatever you're going to put over the top of it. Now, in skincare land, we spray something onto the skin and then we put our moisturizer over it. In hair land, we actually have to put some form of a cream or a treatment onto the hair. And we have several versions of toners that adjust the pH or equalize the porosity of the hair shaft before we actually move on to the styling aids. We have everything again from scalp with peppermint scrub all the way up to treatment things. Anything that's in a tube in Brocato can be used as an instant conditioner. You can put it in and rinse it out, or you can apply heat and it becomes a little bit of a reconstructor, all the way up to Super Silk for really damaged hair as well as Vibracolor. So those are going to think in terms of making sure that you send your guest home with a toner or a conditioner at that point. And then last but not least is moisturizer. And a moisturizer needs to be left in. So if you're going to cleanse the skin, you're going to tone the skin, you're going to finish off with a moisturizer. And it needs to be something that's left in the hair for it to be a moisturizer. And what these are going to do is they're going to equalize the porosity on the surface of the hair and slightly underneath if there's damage to the hair, based off of the needs. So you have some unique pieces. Peppermint Scrub Tonic is considered a moisturizer, mainly for the scalp, to hydrate the scalp, as well as a little bit for the hair. Saturation is our kind of our go-to be-all for moisturizing. Pea size of that in the hair equalizes the porosity. Detangle if you're worried about weight or if time is an issue for you. Most people don't understand that saturate treatment actually can be used on really thick, coarse hair as a leave-in. It has that capability. 8X is an incredible leave-in in the hair or a moisturizer that helps rebuild the proteins on the exterior of the hair. Super Silk leave-in, of course, Cloud9 mousse, moisturizer in a mousse form, which always confuses people. They think styling aid. And then when you need to build a little bit of body, but you're afraid of weighing down the hair, Swell Volume is going to be a really great choice for you. So with that being said, we have cleanse, tone, moisturize, equalize the porosity. And the easiest way to have that conversation with the guest is when you moisturize, your styling products are going to go a little bit further in, and you're going to use a little bit less of them. And that takes us into the last step, which is the foundation or the structure of the hair. So we have several different products that can build structure into the hair. and gives it a little bit of stick or bite or feel to the hair that's sitting on the surface of the hair. I think we're all familiar with those, from Hold On to Fire and Ice to traditional Root Fix or Mousse, or Jeremy's favorite that we're going to see is Swell Volume Gel Mousse. So with that being said, I'm going to shut up now and let Mr. Jeremy talk and go from this point. So take it away, Mr. Jeremy.
Very good. Thank you so much. I have recently put together a video that I call 10 Steps to a Fabulous Finish, because one of the biggest issues that I've faced over the past few years, from talking to salon owners and being an educator in a school myself, is a huge breakdown in the overall finish of the hair, and making sure that that hair is really, really nice and styled and set when that person leaves the salon. And a lot of feedback that I was getting from local people and international people is that there was a real breakdown in this. And so I began trying to put together like a simple routine that you could follow. And so I just kind of paid attention to different things that I had done and different things that I had learned. And I put together what is now 10 Steps to a Fabulous Finish. And it's a pretty basic styling routine that you can put to use immediately behind the chair. And at least, parts of it, pieces of it, because what it does is it gives very controlled results. So if I do this, I'm going to get this. So what happens is that each part of the routine then follows itself and completes the previous step. So when you're done, you're finished, you kind of know ahead of time what your results are going to be in this type of a finish. So we, once again, as Jesse mentioned, start with shampoo and condition the hair. For this particular blowout, I use Swell Volume shampoo and treatment.
Here, let me hit it.
And after shampooing and treating the hair with Swell Volume, towel dry the hair, comb it back. I'm going to create an ear-to-ear across the top of the head parting. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to be able to focus my product application in very specified regions. So Swell Volume Gel Mousse is focused just into the root, in the mid shaft of the hair, in both the front and back of your parting. And then the whole thing is combed through. So not only do you detangle and get the comb or the hair prepped for your blow drying, but you're also helping to distribute all of that Swell Volume Gel Mousse through the hair, so that it stays focused in the root in the mid shaft, but in the combing you're helping to kind of pull the rest of that through the hair, so it's all equally concentrated. So once you have the hair combed back and prepared to dry, then we go into like what we'll call like a pre-dry or a rough dry. You're putting a concentrator on your dryer using high heat and high power. Begin in the back of the head, and you're going to rough dry the roots of the hair for maximum volume. So what we're doing here is we're actually using the blow dryer and the concentrator to lift the hair away from its natural growth tendency, wrap it around the head, so we're not only drying the hair, we're closing the cuticle down, and we're also lifting the hair away from its natural growth tendency in the skull and in the follicle itself, and we're creating a lot of natural lift in the hair, so that we don't have to spend so much time actually lifting the volume with our brushes, etc. We can actually create and dry the hair and create volume at the same time. So it's a very effective use of your tools.
Hey, Jeremy.
So once again, yeah.
Can you expand on that, wrapping it around the head? Because I think that's something that a lot of people get confused by, why you would choose to do that.
Sure. So if you really get in as you're drying hair and you pay attention to the way the person's hair lays, on the skull itself after it's been even combed out or cut, as you go through the hair process, as you get in there with your blow dryer and you begin to focus the air, and you push the hair using your blow dryer, you begin to see that the hair has a natural tendency to want to lay down in a certain direction. And so by lifting the hair up off of the head that way and focusing it around the round of the head, when we put giant Velcro rollers in the hair, the rollers are round. Well, the head is the same shape. It's a round surface. So by bending the hair away, we're actually setting the hair and creating that volume so that we activate the Swell Volume Gel Mousse with the heat and the blow drying action. So it's going to help hold that natural volume in place a little, and you get a much longer set out of it. As you can see in this finished blow dry, her hair is very full, and that comes from that circular kind of working the concentrator up against the hair and lifting it up. I'm not concerned yet how the overall finish is going to be. Right now, I'm only working on the root area. I want to dry that. I want to set that so that I don't have to go back to it and do it again. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. The nice part about it is I don't think a lot of people really know how swell volume works using the kaolin clay. Can you expound on that really quickly?
Sure. Kaolin clay is actually heat activated. So either the heat from the body or a concentrated heat from a blow dryer works great, but it actually causes the clay to swell up. So any coating that is put on the hair through the product application is then going to be activated by the heating of it, and it's going to cause that clay that's on the hair to actually swell up, and that's what kind of gives that life to the hair, that fullness.
And I'm personally, as a hairdresser behind the chair, I find that swell volume is an incredible choice because most volume products work through drying the exterior of the hair out and expanding the cuticle, where this is swelling from the inside out. And I think it's just an incredible product, an incredible choice.
And the parting across the head and the focusing of the product where you want to put it, that's another part of being able to go through and make sure that you're completing all of your steps as you work through. We don't want to go back and do anything. We want to put everything in ahead of time and work our way through our routine so that everything is done for a reason. And especially it's interesting because not too often do our clients part their hair when they're applying product, or do they necessarily even really know where to put the product. So by forcing ourselves to go through these steps, we're actually going to create interest in the client, and they may want to know, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And that way it creates interest in the product, and we can actually educate the client at the same time.
Exactly. Okay.
So then, once we have the round brush or the rough dry completed, we're going to just go through then and completely section the hair off. I have a really basic sectioning pattern. Starts with a mohawk, about as wide as your round brush. Follow the hairline up behind the ear, and then straight across ear to ear in the back. This just breaks down the head so that you don't have to put your dryer down, you don't have to shut things off, you can just work straight through the drying process this way. So each section is then subdivided as you work up the head, going through your round brush motion.
Nice. The nice part about that is just from an ergonomic perspective, not having to put down your blow dryer and just dropping a section. I think that's vitally important, whereas most hairdressers are parting out hair as they go and turning off that blow dryer. It's a huge time saver. Smart thinking, Jeremy.
Thank you. So as we go through with our round brush, we're going to start in the nape, and we're going to use the round brush actually to just hold the hair taut toward us. I'm not going to spend a lot of time spinning and spinning and spinning this brush necessarily, because I'm not looking for a crazy amount of curl necessarily in her hair. What I want to do is close the cuticle down, heat the hair up, remove the frizz, and set it. So I'm using again the concentrator and the high heat from the blow dryer, and I'm slowly closing that cuticle down. And when you take your time like this and you blow dry, you can actually watch the cuticle of the hair itself begin to get shinier and shinier. And so I will continue drying down the hair shaft that way until I notice that shine kick in. Then I know I'm getting a good set. And then I'll just, twist the brush in some way for an effect. Once again, it's a kind of a stylist choice, whatever the finish is that you're looking for. But it's that slowly continuing through the head that way that's going to leave that hair beautifully finished and have a really nice frizz-free shine into it. Once again, I work through the sections, and then this top mohawk section I blow dry forward and bevel under. Once again, this is all in an effort to create a very sustained amount of volume in the hair so that everything is brought forward, it's smooth, it's shiny. I have the client flip her head back, do your little bit of detail work. Once again, I always finish off with a little to a lot of maximum hold hairspray. In my opinion, the greatest hairspray ever. And you can see we have a really nice controlled finish. We have a lot of volume with very minimal effort. Each step that we followed as we went through completed this. It completed itself, worked us into the next step. So as you're going through the day, and you're maybe getting down into the, the last 2 or 3 clients of the day, your body's aching, we all know that feeling. this is a great kind of a fallback to me. It's kind of a dance that I can go through and something that I can do. I know I'm going to get a great result. I know I'm going to pique interest in the client in the way that I'm approaching my styling and my finish. And I also know that my client may learn something, and when they walk out the door, they're going to, hopefully stop people on the street. So kind of our goal in the industry is to make sure that, those clients are stopped. Who does your hair? Wow, you look fantastic. So the more we can control that and we can, predetermine our results, the less fear we have, the more ease we can take into what we're doing, the more concentration we can put into the, the drying itself, the setting of the hair, the tools that we use. Once the routine is there, then the creativity can really open up much easier.
Well, I think there's a couple of key things that you mentioned there, Jeremy, that are vitally important is slowing down. I know I find, especially new hairdressers in the business, or a lot of senior hairdressers for that matter of fact, they're blasting hair and they're moving at a crazy speed or throwing hair over the tip of their blow dryer and just rotating that brush about 10,000 times, where you weren't doing any of that. Can you speak to that for just a second?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a timing thing. When we first get into the salon, it takes us, years, everybody knows, to actually figure out how to time ourselves, to get into a comfortable process. So a lot of that, I think, is just bad habits that are ingrained early, where we feel like we have to rush, and the more we spin the brush, the smoother the hair gets. Well, that's true, but that's also kind of, almost like a temporary happiness. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat quick, and then I'm going to get hungry again. But if I slow down and I actually use my tools and I dry the hair close and I seal that cuticle down, I'm going to completely eliminate frizz. I'm going to heat up and set the hair so that hair, I would hope 3 or 4 days, if she didn't go without washing or getting it wet, it should hold itself in that position that way. And that's kind of the goal. We want to make sure that our work is strong and controlled and not just kind of whipped through because we're in kind of a panic. And what I think you find is that the more you kind of slow down and control what you're doing, all of a sudden the faster you get, because you're not worried so much about keeping up. You're worried about or you don't have to worry, I guess is what I'm trying to say, so much about what you're doing, but it'll just come more naturally to you that way.
Absolutely. I think that just that thought alone about focusing on what you're doing and just breaking down that one spot and really making sure that you have that dry before you move on, and you don't feel like you have to rush through each section and brush it and brush it and brush it crazy or twist the brush, is going to make a huge difference to your success in the long run, by far.
Absolutely. And ergonomically, from a physical standpoint of being behind the chair all day, the least amount of muscle expenditure I have to get, the better I'm going to have and the more energy I have at the end of the day. So, what I love about this whole technique is the idea that it's very minimal work on the body. So when I'm done, I have really great results. Everything looks, the way I expect it to, but I haven't beaten myself up over it. And I think it's one of the things that's kind of picked up a little bit, and the feedback I get from some of the people that I've shown this to is that it's very easy on their body, and they don't, they're kind of like, wow, that wasn't very hard at all.
Absolutely.
So once you kind of figure it out, it becomes very easy, and that's a good thing about it.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned ergonomics, because that was a couple of different things. And just working with you, that I know I picked up that I've taken back to the salon and I wanted to share with our listeners was, when you were working above the round of the head, you were towards her and you were working the hair towards you to create that volume, rather than trying to stand behind the head and work through that top section of the mohawk and almost flattening out your work as you go because the hair is hot. So your body dynamics is incredible in that. So I think that's a huge deal. Keeping your wings in and working on your body dynamics and your circumference. The other thing that I know I've picked up by working with you is wrapping the cord around my arm as I blow dry. I can't tell you how often. I mean, that's a small thing, but really it creates a guest experience behind the chair that's incredible when they're not being smacked by the freaking cord or strangled with the cord that's hanging out. Having it winded around your arm makes a big difference. And working in front of the client like that has really, for me, it's eliminated, I'm 25 years into doing this. It's eliminated that burn underneath the shoulder blade that I typically get by keeping my wings in. I think that's what you called it. Was keeping my wings in was a really great way to manage it.
The more we can keep things chest level and, like directly in front of our work, once again, it allows so much more effortless focus. We don't have to work so hard. Our body doesn't contort. It's always going to be easier, and our results are going to reflect that. Absolutely.
And I think that the easiest thing is, and again, I got this from working with you, was it's easier to pull into your body than it is to push away from your body. It weighs more when you push away from your body than when you pull in. So consistently think about what are you doing it, what are you doing and why are you doing it, and how can I do this better? And can I do this by pulling into myself rather than pushing away? And I think where we got that was over direction. We were over directing and standing on the other side of the head. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
concept. You're pulling into
Mm-hmm.
your body rather than pushing away. A couple of other key things that I wanted to point out is you had mentioned that hot hair is soft and breaks down. And I don't think a lot of our listeners really understand that there's actually some chemistry going into the blow dry there. Anytime hair is hot, the hydrogen and oxygen bonds in the hair are being broken down and the hair becomes more pliable. Anytime it's cold and you use the word set, that's when those hydrogen and oxygen bonds rebond themselves, and that's the durability of the set. So can you speak to that for just a second about heating that hair up and letting it cool down in that shape?
Sure, and I think it's I mean, it's I would hope very common sense for people in our industry that you put the curling iron in, you hold it, it heats up, you drop it. Any of us have made the mistake of trying to hurry a set and combing it out and having the whole thing fall apart. It's that that whole concept of I need to heat this up, I need to put into it the shape that I'm directing, and then I just need to leave it alone and completely let it cool down, and it is cool down as much as I possibly can get it to. And so that concept of hot to cold that we're very familiar with flat irons and curling irons, that same concept is what is being directed here in this, the concentrator on the hair, that heating it up, closing the cuticle, putting the shine in, so that when I put the bend into it, when I affect it with the brush, it does something, and then it stays in that position. And what is causing that is that chemical change, that hot to cold. And so once I've done and I have them flip their hair back like that, that's why I gently just, flip it with my fingers. I'm not in there like really trying to deconstruct it or get too crazy with it. I want to let the natural flow of the hair kind of direct where I'm going. And then I spray the hairspray in, and I really don't mess with it too much because I want that to cool down as much as possible. That's going to guarantee a good long lasting set.
And one of the things that I noticed, thank you, Jeremy. One of the things that I noticed when you were spraying is how you were spraying the hair with the max hold, because I find that when I'm working with a lot of hairdressers in classes and workshops, they spray it on the hair rather than spraying it above the hair and letting it float into the shape. And they kind of wet the hair a little too much and get a little bit of a crispness. Do you have any suggestions on how to manage that easier?
Yeah, sure, I do. Short, controlled bursts, and generally about 18 inches away from the hair. So instead of just like walking in and unleashing a cloud of hairspray around, I would rather have these
Yeah.
short, controlled bursts, so that the spray is, once again, you're controlling what's happening to it. I want it to be directed. I want it to create like a netting over the hair. I want to hold everything. I don't want to create chunky pieces and glossy pieces and once again, I want to make it controlled. Plus, it makes the client sitting in the chair watching us has to be taken into effect a lot. If I'm controlled in my actions and what I'm doing, and I'm applying the hairspray in a certain manner, it shows the clients that we're a professional atmosphere and that we're taking this seriously. So not only is there a finishing aspect to what we're doing, but I always keep in mind what I look like in the mirror and how this is looking to that client that's sitting there. And a lot of this comes from, once again, slowing down. Why am I doing this? What am I doing? What is this person seeing? Is this what they're going to do when they go home? Just fill their bathroom full of hairspray? That's not what we want to represent or to teach our clients. So a lot of what comes out of this is being aware of what that client is looking at also.
Nice. Thank you. Can you break us down into the 10 steps one more time just so we have a real clear idea from top
Sure,
to bottom?
shampoo and treatment. Yeah. Shampoo and treat. Once again, the shampoo and treatment is going to be determined kind of on the finish that you're looking for. Generally on this, I find slow volume to be fantastic. You're going to detangle the hair, comb it all back away from the face. We're going to do an ear to ear parting across the top of the head. We're going to section out like a front and back half. Once again, for this, I'm going to use slow volume gel mousse. I'm going to apply that mousse into the root, into the midshaft area of the hair on both the front and back half of my parting. Then I'm going to comb all the hair back once again, distributing that product through, preparing the hair for my rough dry or my pre-dry. We're then going to go back through with a high heat, high power. We're going to start our rough dry, and we're going to start in the nape, and we're going to blow dry that hair with conviction and with a purpose. We want to lift that hair up. We want to close that cuticle down. We want to shift it out of its normal growth tendency so that we can wake it up a little bit and kind of lock in its volume. Once we've completed the whole head of our pre-dry and our rough dry, working in the short, constantly moving circular motions, I'm going to section off the head from my round brush. I'll start in the top. You're going to create a mohawk section. You're going to go from the hairline behind the ear straight up to that mohawk section. That will be your 2 side pieces. And then just simply divide the back at the occipital bone, ear to ear. You'll start in the back with your round brushing. You're going to kind of subdivide the head as you move through, working up and around the head and as you're round brushing. Remember to keep the concentrator and the dryer moving slow. Remember the round brush holds the hair taut. The blow dryer and the concentrator dry and seal the cuticle, and then the round brush gets to tweak and work its magic at the end. That's how you can put the effect into the hair. So we're going to complete all the way through the back and the sides using that technique. We'll then move into the mohawk section where we'll subdivide and dry all of that horizontally, pulling it forward and beveling it under, using the same slow closing technique as we blow dry down the hair. Flip the hair back and finish it off. Do your detail work, max hold spray. Well, I want to mention really quick too, I put blow dry or Cloud9 blowout serum in the ends of her hair before I did my round brushing. So what that did is it allowed me to use the swell volume gel mousse to get that volume and that kick into the hair as I was rough drying it. And then the serum allowed me to be able to kind of get that slip and that extra little bit of shine and the speed into the drying for the round brushing. So I did use 2 products during this entire blowout, and I think it really helped to kind of control different areas of the head that way. But to back off, let's once we finish that off with our Max Hold hairspray, we can take the cape off and she's ready to go.
So we have a quick question, Jeremy. The question is do you recommend Swell Volume Gel Mousse for pretty much everybody, or what's your favorite go-tos for different types of hair?
Swell Volume Gel Mousse is pretty much good for anybody that isn't really highly textured. If they're already very, have a lot of root volume, I don't necessarily need to go in and create more of that. So, fine to medium, my model for this one, she has, pretty normal textured hair, responds really well to that Swell Volume Gel Mousse. If somebody already had a lot of natural root volume, then I would probably go back into something that, curl and erupted, something to that effect where I'm going to try to either maintain the volume or reduce it down a little bit. So it really depends on hair texture, what type of product I'm going to run to.
Gotcha. Okay. The other key question was, I had somebody ask if we were to, would it help with the heat and the cool to take the shark clips once you flip the hair back and kind of place them at the scalp vertically so that they get a little lift off the scalp for just a second? Would that be a good idea, or is that just pointless?
Yeah, I've never found any reason to have to kind of have it help it cool down necessarily.
Right.
I mean, anything you want to do that can help, but I think the purpose of this is that I'm trying to find something pretty quick.
Okay.
So as a time saver, you may just I've never found any reason. The hair generally cools off because of the amount of lift that you're putting into it. Right from the rough dry, by the time you get the head sectioned after the rough dry, and you start into your round brushing, generally that root area has had enough time to pretty much cool off. So you don't have to focus on it very much anymore.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jeremy. That is an incredible. I like the idea of having a system that we follow every single time. So we have another question. What about blonde swell and bombshell instead of swell volume?
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I've been in Back to the Beach. I found a few bottles of that hanging out downstairs, and I've been kind of going back to it a little bit. But yeah, that's great. Anything like that you focus that product into the, with the spray bottles and the way that product is dispensed, easy to focus it in, put your parting in, spray it into the hair, and then as you comb it all back, you're going to distribute that through really cleanly. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Just as a hairdresser, I have to comment. I can't stand the sensation of something on my hands. So putting it in my hands and putting it through the hair. So I look for any excuse to spray things into the hair, just so I don't have to
Great.
touch it. It's kind of a sickness. Beth has a quick question. Do you use the cool shot on the blow dryer?
Sometimes I find for like a little bit finer hair that I really I want to get that, I want to guarantee my set, or hair that doesn't curl. We all know that really straight hair that just won't hold a curl. Then yes, the cool shot does come in handy for that. As so like I would go through and I might rough dry the whole back area, like the nape, the occipital bone, up into the root or the crown area, and then once that is all heated and lift, I would actually set it to cool and go back through and rough dry that whole panel with the cool setting, just to kind of guarantee that I'm going to kind of lock in that volume that I'm looking for. Yeah, that's a great tip.
So what you're saying is really on those really fine heads of hair that it requires a lot of bend, you do that on, or maybe even that thick coarse head of hair that holds its heat. Those would be like
Absolutely.
the two ranges that you would use it. Okay, beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful. Okay, so I think we have a great. That was great, Jeremy. Good job. That was incredible.
Thank you.
The next piece to this was really about retailing and retailing through the whole process because as you can see, Jeremy's talking a lot about product, and he has some serious convictions about the product choices that he uses. But before we move on, Jeremy, do you have any other? That was the other question somebody asked was, do you have any other product recommendations for creating volume on your everyday average Joe when you're trying to smooth out or when you're trying to just create some stick and hold in the hair? What are your other choices?
I really like volumizing tonic.
Okay.
That's another one that's great just to get into the root area. And I also have been tending to use my hairsprays a little bit more. I know
Really?
it kind of goes back to these 80s kind of days, and I remember watching my sister do her hair a lot. But if you take a good hairspray and a blow dryer, you can pretty much lock down anything. So I have been playing around a little bit with actually using hairsprays as I'm blowing the hair and directing it upwards, to use a little bit of movable hold as I'm directing that into the hair. And that's given me some pretty nice lift in volume in some of my more, like some of my bigger hair clients, some of my more rocker girls that I have. I've been playing around with a little bit of movable hold hairspray with the blow dryer as I'm doing that rough dry, and it's given me some pretty good results lately. Kind of
Well,
out of the box a little bit, but
no, it's great. I love the idea of how you actually applied it. I'm sorry I didn't show it in the video of putting the swell volume gel mousse on, rough drying, and then putting on the Cloud9 blowout versus most of us, I think, would just put both of them on the hair and go for it.
sure. Yeah, and I think that what it does is it provides more focus as to what the product can do, and it once again it piques interest in that client. They might look at you and be like, "Well, now what do you? I thought my hair was already dry. Excuse me, why are you putting that on?"
Right.
And I can then it opens up that conversation, and any chance I can create to open up that conversation, it just makes as you're getting in here to retailing that much easier.
Let's see. We have another question here. Power fix as you blow dry. Let me.
Ooh, that would make a rock hard mohawk.
And it gets a little bit hard when you're doing that.
Yes.
Okay, so Jeremy's speaking with a lot of conviction as far as products are concerned. So, a couple of different things I like to point out when you're talking about retailing in the salon, you want to make sure that you're doing something what we call RED, recommend, educate, demonstrate. And you heard what Jeremy was talking about educating your guest on how much to use, what to use, and where to put it, and open up that conversation. So we call that giving a what to do with a what to use. So you want to make sure this is the brush I use, here's the sections I use, here's how much product I use, and here's where I put it. And better yet, here's the method of actual application rather than just going for it. And the second part about that is to make sure that when you're retailing, that you make this feel like a fluid process. Most hairdressers I find get to the very end, they pull something out of a pile of products and they slap it on the hair. You want to make sure you go through the ritual of retailing by taking everything off of your station. And when you boutique meaning place the product in front of your guest from left to right based off of what you're using. So in Jeremy's example, he would place the leave-in um, he would place the leave-in actually into the hair and then apply the swell volume gel mousse over the top of it, and then then he would move on to his Cloud9 blowout next to it. So he's discussing product in the beginning, the middle, and the very end. And my all-time favorite with that is at the very end of the service is, do you have everything you need at home to style your hair at home? And it just opens up that question, and make sure and ask that question in the salon before they're actually leaving. So really make sure you follow that process. And I'm sure you would agree, Jeremy, that retailing feels very fluid when you follow that. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it takes the salesmanship out of it because it just is part of what you're doing. And so there, if when they see you doing it, it just becomes a normal activity of your everyday world. It just, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And with that being said, one of the things that I find in the salon, and this is why I appreciate Brocato so much, is having promotions in the salon makes this conversation so much easier. And obviously, right now with January and July are always our leader promotion time of year. You can save up to 47% in your leaders right now to the consumer. So it makes that conversation really easy. I know in our salon, it's a very simple sell. The 10-ounce bottle runs for about $18 to $20. Here you have a 32 ouncer that runs for $25. It's really a simple no-brainer in the salon. Everybody's got to shampoo their hair. A couple of the other promotions that we have going on at the moment is 45% off of 8X. We're talking about shampoo, condition, and the leave-in. 8X makes for an incredible leave-in to increase the strength of the hair, build up that cuticular strength and that core strength in the hair as well before you're actually putting your styling aid on in the hair. We have a nice point of sale piece that has 9 different Super Silk 8X built into it. And as well as we are launching this month the new Super Silk conditioner. It's a rinse out conditioner that you could, Pure Indulgent Super Silk rinse out conditioner that you can use at the shampoo bowl. I know what we've done in our salon is you buy the shampoo, you get the conditioner for free. And it's made a huge difference. And we've also done the buy the 8X and get the conditioner for free as well, because clearly we have the margin built into it. Having these kind of promotions makes the conversation a little bit more fluid and makes it a little bit easier for the guests. So if you recommend, educate, demonstrate what to do with a what to use, have a beginning, a middle, and an end, have a plan to your blowout, have the promotions, it's kind of the trifecta of magic when it comes to retailing behind the chair. So with that being said, that brings us kind of to the conclusion of where we're at today. We're going to stay on here a little bit longer. Feel free to ask questions. Just wanted to draw your attention before we're actually done to our new website, brocatotoday.com. If you go to our website, it's been completely relaunched and revisited, and there's actually a porthole into our Super Silk website as well for smoothing and launching Pure Indulgence. So I want to say thank you, one, to you, Mr. Jeremy, for all of your time, energy, and efforts in this. This has been incredible. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we'll stay on the call for a few and answer any questions that we might have, and we will go from there. I thank you for your time. Our next webinar will be launching very shortly. I'm not exactly sure what the topic or the date is going to be. Be looking in your emails for that. Thank you, and have a very beautiful day. Okay.